The Midday Show, live on QBS.
We've got a massive topic, and we're diving into something that is close to not just my heart, but probably to many of yours as well, especially in the beautifully diverse country that we call home. We're talking about what it means to be, multiracial or multicultural, and the beautiful, sometimes bumpy journey towards belonging and self-acceptance. Now, growing up between cultures can often feel like walking on a tightrope, never quite too much of one thing and never quite enough of another. But here's the magic. That unique blend of identities is a story all on its own, and learning to embrace every part of who we are, that's not just healing, it's very powerful. So whether you're figuring it out, living it loud, or supporting somebody who's on that path, stick around as we've got a special guest expert joining us in the studio, and we're going to, open this big dialogue about identity, culture, and how we learn to truly belong to ourselves first before, we find a sense of belonging elsewhere. Right? You have to love yourself. You have to accept yourself before anybody else can come and love and accept you. So we're going to be exploring all of these things today in today's episode, which is all about the art of belonging and self-acceptance. Now, let me hit you with some facts about, being multicultural or multiracial and, the sense of belonging and self-acceptance. So, according to the Pew Research Center, the multiracial population in many countries, including the US, Canada, and parts of Europe, is one of the fastest growing demographic groups. In the US, for example, the multiracial population increased by 276% between 2010 and 2020. Multiracial and multicultural individuals often grow up navigating multiple cultural norms, languages, and expectations, and this can build empathy, adaptability, and a broad worldview, but also raise questions like, where do I truly belong? Which brings us to this next part, which is the quote-unquote not enough experience, right? And this is a common challenge, which is feeling like you're not enough of one culture or the other. And this can happen when a person is seen as too different by one side or not fully belonging to another. That tension can impact mental health and self-esteem, especially during formative years. And this is something that I have personally experienced growing up. I would go to like the Qataris and they're like, you're not Qatari enough. And then I would go to the Filipinos and they're like, but you're not Filipino enough, right? Like, or you're not really Filipino. And then don't get me started on the Indian community. It was very tough to navigate. Sometimes I wished that I was just, one ethnicity, one nationality to make it easier on myself. But then if that had happened, I wouldn't be me. I would be a completely different person. But that was the whole not enough experience was so challenging to navigate, especially when I was younger, because I would get it as early as I can remember. So let's see, I think I entered kindergarten around 5 or 6, and that is so young. 5 is like me reaching the end of my formative years. So imagine a 5-year-old going into kindergarten with a bunch of students that are only from one cultural background, and I'm the only one that's different, right? So imagine the impact that must have had on someone as young as 5 or 6 years old. But the thing is, right, with identity, it's fluid and it's evolving. And, many multiracial people report that their sense of identity shifts over time based on environment, relationships, and self-discovery. And this is so true because when I left that environment of being around people that are only one thing, and I entered a world where, people are 2 things, 3 things, 4 things at the same time, it changed my perspective completely. And it brought me to a place where I'm like, okay, it might be tough not really fully belonging to one community, but if I accept myself for all the cultures that I am, for all that I am basically, then people will accept me as I am. And it's not easy. It does sound like it's super easy, but it's not. It was a whole journey of basically me kind of picking a part of each of my cultures and being like, okay, this I resonate with this. I resonate with this from, my Filipino background. I resonate with this from my Indian background, or, my ancestors are from Africa. So I'm like, okay, this part also resonates with me and my Qatari side. So I just cherry picked the things that resonated with me the most. And I started to carry that with me wherever I go. And, this means that there's no right way to be multiracial or multicultural. It's just your way, whatever feels right and it feels good to you. And that's when, the sense of belonging starts to kick in, and it's like an internal thing. And studies and personal stories alike show that true belonging often starts with self-acceptance. When individuals embrace all parts of themselves, even the ones that society tries to question or minimize, they build stronger internal foundation of confidence and self-worth. Now, growing up, I faked it till I made it so much, and I used to find it so funny when people would come to me and they're like, oh my god, you're so confident, I'm so jealous of you, I wish I could be that confident. And externally I'm like, yeah, it's all good, right? But inside I'm like, they don't know I'm faking this so hard right now. But that built up a lot of, it gave me space to explore myself and really fully accept me as I am, right? I am not just Qatari, I'm not just Filipino, and I'm not just Indian. I'm not just one thing. I'm everything all at once. Like that movie, Everywhere, Everything All at Once? Basically that. And when you accept yourself, you don't need anybody else to come and validate you. You're valid all on your own. And that is so important as a person. You need to be valid by yourself. You need to learn to love and accept yourself, because nobody is going to come and do that for you, right? And nobody can do that with you or for you if you don't love and accept yourself. So again, the topic of today is the role of self-acceptance and the art of belonging. So many of us search for a place or people to belong to, but we rarely ask, do I belong to myself first? And like I was saying earlier, belonging to yourself and accepting yourself first is extremely important. Finding a sense of belonging isn't easy, and it might seem unclear when you struggle with conflicting intercultural identities, or when you feel like an outsider among groups. And, with the help of our guest today, our guest expert will explore how embracing who we are, our flaws, and how it's all often the first step in finding meaningful connection with others, and how does our sense of belonging shape our mental health. So joining us today is Kayoko Nidsaid, a certified executive life coach committed to helping people unlock their potential and navigate life transitions. So welcome to the show, Kayoko. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here and to talk about this important topic.
Yeah,
which is
I'm
so close
super
to my heart.
excited. It's close to mine as well, and I'm sure many others that are, tuned in right now, because having a multicultural background is becoming more and more, the norm.
Yes.
Right? Than when we were growing up, I suppose, especially here in Qatar. So many different ethnicities, nationalities, and different backgrounds, and we all blend together, it's kind of seamlessly at this stage in, 2025. It's kind of seamless. So it's a massive topic, and we were just talking off air. We could talk about this the whole week if we can. Definitely. So, okay. Getting to our questions now, when we talk about belonging, what does that actually mean from an emotional and psychological stance? And what's really going on inside of us when we say that we feel like we do or don't belong?
I guess that word belonging can be interpreted so differently by different people. And it depends on the experiences that they've had and the situation that they find themselves in. Mm-hmm. But it's often mistaken by fitting in. So the moment someone feels that they don't fit in, they feel that they don't belong. And I think as we go through this conversation, it's about maybe delving in a bit deeper of what actually belonging means. Right. Because it's a lot deeper than that. It's not just about fitting in. So a lot of the times people feel that they don't belong because they might be in an environment that perhaps it doesn't fit with their physical, what people expect from you physically, for example, or language barriers, or perhaps there could be disabilities. So there's a lot of aspects around it. psychologically, it can actually traumatize people.
Yeah.
Especially depends on when the experiences happen. You were mentioning about, how you experienced this when you were young. Me too. I mean, from the moment I was born, I was different.
Basically.
So, and, I've always thought that was actually like something bad. Whereas now that I've gone through a lot of life coaching, I'm actually so proud of it, and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world, because
it's like your biggest strength now.
Yes.
But back then, it definitely did not feel like it.
No, I had to justify myself to everyone all the time.
Right.
Because I look different in Colombia. I definitely don't look full Japanese. I think there's a term in Japanese called hafu for people who are mixed.
Yeah,
I mean, that's already like hafu, like half of what, It's oh, and I don't fit in anywhere I go. So it's something, but it actually sparks up the conversation, and now I use it to be able to help people understand and sort of get out of that sort of, not ignorant, but in a way, certain places, it's actually ignorance because they don't know any better.
No, definitely. And, I still get, questioned and by people till this day, right? Now it's not about my cultural backgrounds, it's about my race, where people are like, but you're not really black, are you? And I'm like, my dad was black, that makes me black, right? My ancestors, from his side, my ancestry is from Africa. So, what do you mean I'm not black? And like you, I used to feel the need to validate, right, and show off my family on my dad's side and receive validation from there, like, oh yeah, okay, your family's all black, so you are, now we accept you into this community. And I'm like, but why do we do that? But yeah, it's definitely, like I said, it's a journey, and like you said, it can be extremely traumatizing, but I believe we can move forward from it and find our own sense of belonging. And speaking of that, why is, that sense of belonging so essential for people? And how does it shape our, mental health? And how does it show up in how we feel about ourselves or how we connect with others?
I mean, when you feel like you belong, like you fit in, you feel safe. So I think it comes down to safety and security. Everyone's looking to have some type of safety and security around, because then they let the guards down and they're okay. When you feel like you don't belong, you're constantly on survival mode. Who's going to say what next? How am I going to be able to make sure that I'm included in this situation or this conversation, or I'm going to be given the same rights as someone else next to me is being given? And being on that survival mode the whole time is actually yes, it is, and high cortisol levels. I mean, that was my norm. Now that I've been able to learn to accept myself and see the beauty of how God has actually created me and all the different spices that He has put in me, and I celebrate that, I'm thinking, wow, how did I survive all that? Because all the time was high cortisol levels, just waiting to see what's going to strike next.
Right. No, definitely. It's exhausting. It's draining.
Yes.
And it's, it pushes you to a dark place where you start asking yourself, what's the point? And obviously, by starting this conversation, we're hoping to, prevent that for someone if they're in that space. Because we both personally know how dark it can get when you don't have that sense of, like you said, safety and security. But yeah, for sure. And it wears you down. Yeah,
it can. And it can be very isolating. So you're mentioning about some of the psychological effects. It could be that, like, especially I think for children that perhaps are at school and they seem differently and they get bullied or they get isolated because they're just not the same as everyone else. I mean, this happens not just in terms of the ethnic look and feel, but also about, if someone's more clever than someone else or if someone's having difficulties in learnings. I think it's really important to start pausing and really reflecting on, if you feel that someone is different, why are they different? But just God made us all very different. And if we're all the same, we'll be so boring, right? Be a very boring world.
Yeah.
So it's about appreciating the beauty of how God created each one of us.
Definitely, for sure. My mom used to always say, your 5 fingers are not the same.
Definitely.
So how can you expect, everybody to be the same? We should, be treated equal.
Yes.
but not the same, because we're not the same. We all go through different experiences. We all have different traumas. We all have different things to work through in life. So definitely, yeah, it would be boring if we were all like factory made, one size fits all. Yeah, there would be nothing to learn, I feel like, as well.
100%. And I think growing up and being multicultural, because obviously my father's Japanese, my mom is Colombian. I was born in Colombia, so my first language is Spanish, and that's my mother tongue. And like so many times, I still have it when I meet the Japanese and they start saying Kayoko-san and they start talking to me in Japanese, I freeze because I'm thinking, oh, I'm like a fake Japanese, and I'm not a fake Japanese because I did a DNA test that said that most of my genes are Japanese. But I feel like that because
it feels like you're a made in China Japanese person.
Yes, exactly, because I'm not able to converse with them. So there's a lot of aspects to it, but it's about, like you mentioned earlier on, it's about self-acceptance. And, you know, we do fall back into our old habits sometimes. But the moment we start accepting ourselves for who we are, and we do that first, then we are able to filter those people around us that deserve to be around us. If they accept us for who we are, then they deserve of our time. If they don't, then it's God filtering us, saying that they're not good for you in your life.
For sure.
100%.
I've filtered out so many people in my life.
Yeah.
I've protected my peace so much that most nights I'm in bed by 9-10 p.m. But, you know, people might look at me and be like, oh, that's boring. You're an old lady. Like, what's wrong with you? But to me, I'm like, my peace is more important than any of your problems that you could bring into my life. Like, I would rather go to sleep at peace 9-10 p.m. than have people that don't deserve my time or my energy. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, call me boring if you want, but it's fine. It's definitely, you know, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
So going back to our questions, what do you think, so in your opinion, what do you think are the biggest barriers people face when it comes to finding a sense of belonging, especially in today's, you know, fast-paced digital world where everyone's always online and we're always comparing ourselves?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think now we have a lot more pressures. Pressures in the fact that we have to look the perfect way that a lot of these like commercial or digital platforms actually show. Pressure that, okay, that, you know, now because of social media, I see a lot more half Japanese. I've actually in my work, I met one half Japanese, one half Colombian lady, and she's more Japanese than I am. So sometimes like comparing ourselves can be actually quite toxic. So we need to be able to build boundaries and understand, you know, how far do we want to go in this.
Right.
And, you know, the digital world has opened up so many different platforms. So it's instead of looking at the glass is half empty, it's about looking at it as half full and understanding that there's a lot of people like us.
Right.
Where I was growing up, there was only me that I knew. And then slowly I started being able to be introduced to more of the sort of Japanese, Colombian community. And once I got out of Colombia and I went to London, because that's where I grew up from the age of 11, I see people from all over the world. It's a bit like Qatar. You know, you see people from all over the world.
London is extremely diverse, yeah.
Yes, and but they actually also merge and mix a lot. So, you know, like I think here in Qatar, people still tend to stick to the different communities, you know, but London is actually like a melting pot, as they call it.
For sure. No, I lived in the UK for 4 years. I spent a good amount of time in London. I definitely agree. It's a very interesting place.
And how did you feel when you were there? Did you feel like you belonged there, or were you able to be yourself more freely, or?
Not that I belonged.
Okay.
Because where I was in Sunderland, which is up north.
Okay.
The majority of the population in Sunderland was old British people.
Okay.
And other than that, it was a student town. So we had like international students, mainly from China, Kuwait, and various countries from Africa, namely Nigeria. That was like the biggest African population in my town. It was Nigerian. But obviously we had Ghanaian, Kenyan, all of these things. The Qatari population was actually extremely small where I was. Most of them were in Newcastle. But where I was, like, there was like literally a handful of us. And I guess considering my experiences back home, I tend to not go towards the Arab community, right? Because I guess that's where the trauma still comes in, where I'm like, I'm not going to be accepted, so why put myself in a position where, you know, I'll have to validate and fight for acceptance all over again. My friend group was mainly the Nigerians. They adopted me. They saw me sitting by myself and they were like, come join us. But weirdly enough, in that I found a sense of belonging. But at the same time, I was able to explore myself, discover who I am. And, you know, as I was saying earlier, I got to explore myself to the point where I'm like, okay, I resonate with this from my Filipino background, from a Qatari background. And that's when I started cherry picking like the best parts that I resonated with and embracing that as who I am. And, you know, obviously I've carried it on, right? Still carrying it on. And I'm still finding out more things about myself and my cultural background. But yeah, that being in the UK gave me the ability and the space to self-discover. Yeah.
And maybe that part of you that you'd self-discover there was the part that was the right area to discover there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
for sure.
So
If,
from your, you know, your black roots, for example.
Yeah.
Because this is what's happened to me also. Like being in the UK, I discovered certain things, but it was only when I came to Qatar that I was able to actually discover and accept my Japanese side a lot more. Because
sure.
you know, there's so many Toyotas and Japanese things, and you know, Qataris love Japan.
We love anime, we love J-pop and all J-dramas and all of these things. It's definitely a massive thing. Cosplaying, we definitely have a huge appreciation for Japanese culture.
And it was so interesting because I was thinking, oh my God, they actually like these things. You know, it's something that I actually hit so much.
Right.
So it was actually through a Qatari friend that I started actually trying sushi a lot more, because I just shut it out completely psychologically. And I started liking a lot more Japanese things, to the point that now I've accepted it a lot more. So it's interesting how different situations, different environments perhaps are part of that journey to heal, because that's what I think we all perhaps are meant to do, to heal and actually grow the wisdom that we need.
Definitely. Like you said, you know, I would not change my, trade my experience of living abroad for anything in the world. Sure, it was difficult. Sure, I was by myself, and at times I felt lonely and isolated, and that's when my mental health was at its lowest. But at the same time, I found myself, and I wouldn't change that for anything. You know what I'm saying? So, what's the connection between belonging and self-worth, and why does rejection or even feeling unseen make us question our own value? Because I've definitely been there.
So I think there's two things: being seen, unseen, or rejection. Rejection is something that no one ever likes, and it hurts. It's something that's very personal. So it's you as your whole being that's actually not being accepted. Being not seen, that's something that I suffered most of my life, because I was like, you know, like I was saying to you during the break, you know, I look that I'm half Japanese. I don't look like I'm fully Colombian. They look very, very different. And it's something that all of my growing up life, they actually pretended that it wasn't there.
It didn't exist. Yeah.
And I was like, how can you do that? So, you know, it affects you dramatically, but not being seen. Then from that childhood situations and experiences, then you grow up as an adult and you still continue to feel like a child at times, where if you're not being included in certain situations or anything, you feel like you're being unseen. So it's very important that, you know, you feel that you're accepted, that you feel that you're not being rejected, that you're being seen, that you're being included, and that can actually affect the whole concept of belonging. And if people don't actually heal through perhaps life coaching or therapy or perhaps some psychological help or support, that can actually, you know, go with you until your elderly age and until you die. Sometimes people don't deal with it at all.
Definitely. But like, again, what is that connection? Why do we connect our self-worth to belonging?
You know, the way that humans have been created is all about community and feeling like they fit in. It's connectivity. You don't see any human that lives like a hermit. Like, well, there's a few, I guess, but not really. Like, you see communities and feelings. So we've been created this way. And I guess survival helps us to be able to, you know, by being connected in a community, you're able to survive. You know, you hunt for each other, like in the olden times, you know, you support each other. Someone's sick, you help each other. So that instinct of belonging is within us.
Right.
But going back to what we were saying earlier on, if we don't learn to accept ourselves, and belong to ourselves first, then anything that can happen can actually have a major psychological impact on us. So it's very difficult to be able to then accept someone not accepting you, because then you provide all that power to someone else to validate who you are. And that's what we have to be careful, not to provide all the power that you can hold for yourself to someone else to say you are worth it or you're not worth it, or you belong or you don't belong.
Nobody
Does
can
that
tell
make
you
sense?
that. Yeah.
No.
Nobody has the right to tell you that, right?
No.
You decide that.
Yes,
You
yeah.
yourself decide that. But like, as we're saying, it's honestly a massive journey. It sounds easy, like we're talking about it as if it's easy. It's not. And we've both personally been through it.
Yes.
So, if you're going through it, just know that you're not alone. There is a community, out there for you somewhere. For me, what really helped me out growing up is there is a Qatari Filipino community here in Qatar, and obviously my mom, when she married my dad, she was working as a nurse in Hamad Hospital, and obviously she has her little batchmate friends that also married Qataris. So there was that community, right? As small as it was, it's much bigger now, but as small as it was, there was that community that kind of helped me understand a bit of both sides more, right? Because at home, I just live with my Qatari culture. But then, going to my mom's friends or my own friends, because majority of my friends growing up were Filipino, it kind of helped me understand a bit more of both sides. I think the culture I'm disconnected from the most still till this day is my Indian culture.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the hardest culture for me to connect with. But yeah, for sure.
So sorry to interrupt. So basically what you're saying is once you found your tribe, you're able to actually expand your horizons and
For
grow
sure, yeah.
further and understand yourself better.
Yeah.
So can I ask you something? So you mentioned that the hardest culture for you to connect with is your Indian culture. So is that something that you want to live the way it is now, or is it something that you want to explore?
Oh, I definitely want to explore, but I'm still balancing between the
other
two.
two.
Yeah. Because being here, I'm still trying to really connect with my Qatari culture, right?
Okay.
As we were saying, connecting to who you really are is a journey, and I'm still, I guess I still have some traumas from growing up, right? But being here, working where I work, with the help of my wonderful, beautiful colleagues, it's helped me embrace it more. Because as you were saying with your Japanese, right? When you hear someone speaking to you Japanese, you just freeze, right?
I run away.
Like, what do I do? Where do I go? Can I just run?
Hide.
It's exactly how I feel with Arabic. You know what I'm saying? Like, but if it wasn't, like I said, if it wasn't for my colleagues, my Arabic would not have improved one bit. But because of them, it's improving, and I'm slowly starting to gain that confidence of connecting with other, Arabs and Qataris in general, and being able to actually be able to relate to them through language, which is something I've never been able to do growing up. So still balancing that out, but definitely I do want to connect with my Indian culture. It's not something I don't think I'll be able, I don't know if I will be able to learn the language, but definitely looking into the culture and trying to connect to it is something I'm definitely looking to do in the future.
And it's interesting that you mentioned language, because language is that bridge
It
for
is.
connection that's really important, so that you can really delve deep into what the culture is about. But there's another one, which is food.
Yeah.
And food is something that actually unites people no
I love
matter where
Indian
it is.
food.
Okay, so you do. So you're connected with that culture already through food.
Yeah, through food, yeah. I love Indian food. Okay, so taking it back to our conversation, what's the difference between fitting in and truly belonging? And how can we tell if they're molding themselves to be accepted rather than, being embraced for who they are? And, how can we hold on to our authenticity, especially in, environments like work and school and things like this?
Yeah, this is a tough one that I think a lot of people tend to struggle with, because fitting in is all about being accepted for who you think they want you to be. So it's not really about who you are. It's about changing yourself. Sometimes it's about shrinking yourself so that you don't have that light that overshines across other people. Sometimes it's about being stretched, where you feel like you're having the imposter syndrome, where you feel like you're faking it, you know. And it's all about pleasing someone else. So it's about being and changing yourself to someone who you think or you perceive they want you to be. And belonging, it's all about being accepted for who you are. So I think it'll never be one or the other. It'll be a balance, because we go through situations where we have to fit in,
right,
but never forget who we are. But at the same time, you have to have some tact, because you don't want to be, if you continue to be who you are, you might end up being rude, or perhaps, not be empathetic to someone else's culture. So you do have to learn to balance that. But I think the most important thing is not ever about shrinking or changing who you are, because the moment you start doing that for someone else, you're betraying yourself. And I think that's where all the psychological and all the sort of emotional stress comes in, because you're being someone who you're not meant to be. And this is where, when we talked about finding your tribe, you don't need to fit everywhere, but as long as you find a group of people who you can be yourself with and understand you and accept you for who you are, that all that energy can be released there.
I love that.
I
love that. So, again, how do we hold on to our authenticity when it comes to environments that, reward conformity? Again, like school, work, society, these types of environments. How can we embrace our authenticity when conformity is what is, accepted?
I mean, one of the ways I think that we should look into it is boundaries. It's about, once you know who you are, it's about understanding your own boundaries and how much you're willing to compromise yourself for someone else, or whether it's that environment, a school setting, or not. So we're talking here about backgrounds and different ethnic, backgrounds. But there's also like neurodiversity. There's people who are very agile, or people who are perhaps not as agile in class. And, these are things that also about belonging. How do teachers make sure that when you have a group of 30 kids, that they're able to actually cater for the needs of all these kids? How do you make sure that if someone needs a lot more stimulation, that they're actually being stimulated, so that and being given the work that they need at that level that they're in, so that they don't become bored or do things that will actually obstruct the classroom? And what about the ones that are playing catch up? So it's really important to have the context of the situation and those boundaries. And if at any moment in time you are in an environment where it's actually playing against you, the fact that you're not feel that you belong in, so it's playing against your growth or your personal development, change your environment. We have a choice.
Don't change
in
yourself,
life.
Change your environment.
Yes, we have a choice in life.
Right.
And I think one of the most beautiful things I've learned is that choice equals freedom. We don't need to stay where we are always, because we need to force ourselves to fit into something that is just not going to let you become who you're meant to be.
Right.
So what other choices are there? If it's not working in a specific environment, a specific school, specific workplace,
change it.
Specific country, change it, but don't change yourself.
Yeah, I think this is why growing up, and I know this annoyed my mom when I was a kid, I only spent 2 years in each school that I was in. So, kindergarten, obviously I didn't have a choice in that, right? I went to the same kindergarten all my siblings went to, and then moved on to, year 1 and year 2 with the same people from kindergarten. The same girls that were bullying me in kindergarten, we moved on together for those 2 years. And then, the first independent school opened in Al-Juhara, and my principal, who knows my family, she spoke to my mom and she's like, I think Al-Juhara would excel in this type of school because it's going to be half English, half Arabic. It'll be better for her. Because I was never great at school, considering everything was in Arabic. And then I spent a year there, went back to my old school for 2 years, changed to another school 2 years, another school for 2 years, and my mom was like, until when? And I was like, well, if I don't feel like it's a good environment, if I don't feel like I'm getting a good education, I want to change my environment. I can't stay somewhere where I don't feel like I'm succeeding.
or where you're going to thrive.
Yeah.
Because we're all growing every single day, right?
Exactly.
So you need to be in an environment where you're going to thrive.
Definitely.
And it's good that you actually fought for yourself and you did that, because imagine if you hadn't done that and you stayed in the same school, what would it have cost you?
A lot. And, as much as it annoyed my mom, I was like, I gotta do this. My mom, one thing about me, my mom loves and kind of gets annoyed at how strong-minded I am. And I mean, shout out to her, I got it from her, right? But she knows when Al-Juhara says she's gonna do something, whether I agree to it or not, she's gonna do it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing to be known for, and for you to know about yourself. Because when you depend on that, and you depend on your own strength, and you depend on your own values and the person who you are, anyone can say anything, and it doesn't get to you anymore.
It doesn't. It really just rolls off my back. I'm like, okay, if that's what you that's what you think, that's what you think.
It's their loss, not yours.
And it bothers them when it doesn't get to you, and I'm like, that's cool.
But that's because you're comfortable with who you are. So going back to your self-worth and understanding who you are is so important. It's the foundation to everything.
Of course. Definitely. I have one more question for you, which is, what are the common mental health conditions associated with lacking a sense of belonging, and what are some tips to help boost that sense of belonging?
So some of the actual common symptoms are anxiety, a lot of overthinking, playing the same situations over and over again on your mind. How could I have done it differently? Blaming yourself because for some reason it feels like it's something wrong with us, as opposed to perhaps something not right with someone else for being so judgmental. So cortisol levels, like we were talking earlier on, being constantly on a survival mode, cortisol levels are quite high. And all of these have an effect on health. Right. Isolation is one that could be actually quite, at times dangerous, because you prefer to actually remove yourself from the situation as opposed to actually facing and dealing with it. So some of those can be, like how to deal with it. I think it's like what we mentioned earlier on about trying to not let that get to you. Face the fear and do it anyway. That's something that I always say. Look for your tribe. There are people. There's so many, over 7 billion people in the world. Right. There's a lot more people like us. No matter what type of non-belonging we feel, or group we actually belong to. And, just find your tribe. Find your tribe, community, being able to share with someone else. Life coaching definitely something where you can actually look into what causes the triggers of these traumas that you might be feeling. Talking it out loud. Sometimes we just hide them and keep them to ourselves, and they just get bigger and bigger. So just saying it out loud, writing, journaling also helps to be able to identify triggers of why we feel the way we feel sometimes, and working on yourself. Self-love. I think is the first step. Right.
Okay, so now we're going to kickstart our questions, and we have some really good ones from our listeners. So we have Noor, who said, have I spent my whole life trying to belong in places that were never meant for me? And that's a very interesting question. I was telling Kayoko off air that I think this is a question, it's hard for us to answer. It sounds more like something our listener has to answer for themselves. But I've definitely asked myself that multiple times in my life. I was explaining to you off air that for me, it's like if I think about it in terms of shapes, I'm a triangle, and am I trying to squeeze myself into, a circle box that I'm definitely not supposed to be in? And am I trying too hard to fit in here when clearly it's not working, right? Definitely, I've asked myself that before, but I think this is a question only our listener can answer.
Definitely, because it depends on the context of their situation or how they're feeling. But then every situation is there for a reason, and It has a lesson for us. It's a tool for us to be able to learn a lot more about ourselves and about what we're willing to compromise, not compromise, or accept. And, if, like what you're saying, if you're a triangle trying to fit into a circle, then it raises a lot of questions. Why am I trying to fit into a circle? Why am I not happy being a triangle? What actually are the benefits of being in triangle and having all these different 90 degrees, angles around me, when so many people are circles? What's unique about me? So it's about how can we once again look at the glasses half full and understand, what is this here to teach me? What can I get out from this? How can I actually grow resilience from this, so that it can prepare me for whatever next lesson, because there will be another one coming up soon. So
it doesn't stop at you realizing you should be in the triangle box, right? It doesn't stop there. There's going to be another question and then another question. Once you've answered that, it's just constant questions, right?
100%.
It's just, I guess, a mindset and how you handle that those types of questions. We also have a listener here who says, great topic. What advice do you give your younger selves when they were bullied, and how would you tell them to stand up for themselves?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a very powerful question when we think about...
I would have told my younger self to start swinging, ask questions later.
Defend yourself.
I would have told myself that these hands are gender fluid. They can catch up. Everybody can catch them. No, I'm joking. Obviously, violence is never the answer to anything. That's a tough question.
Yeah. But even what you were saying is like that you know that you're strong and you can deal with this. I think that's what you're saying, that you can swing, you're strong, you can deal with it, and you can defend yourself. You have the right to defend yourself. But maybe a way to defend yourself is to make sure that you don't keep it in, because that's another moment of isolation where, people generally, or even kids, they think, oh, there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with me, and no one likes me, and then the feeling of rejection comes in, and they isolate themselves, and they shut out from the world, even from people like their parents or friends that could actually help. So the moment when that happens is all about reaching out for help.
Right.
And if that person doesn't help, there's another person. But reaching out for help and understanding that there are people who are so insecure, and there must be something so beautiful about you. Mm-hmm. And that's why they're trying to target you. Yeah. Because if there's nothing that someone else wants, they will ignore it. You're no one to them. So there must be something different in you that brings some insecurity out in another person that actually makes you a target. I mean, look, so many times, my Latin side comes out. You have Japanese and Colombian. Japanese tend to be quite quiet, more, contained. Colombians, Latin, crazy, loud, happy,
vibrant.
We want to party the whole time. And a lot of the times people are saying to me, are you always like this? Or like what? Are you always this happy? Are you always smiling? And there comes times when people don't see me happy that they think, oh, you're human, you're like us. And I'm thinking, do you wait to see me not happy to feel good? That's so it's about that person's feeling that if they're not always happy, then they have a joy of not seeing you happy. Right. So it's about a reflection on someone else, not on you.
For sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I was explaining to you off air that when I was younger, me and all of my siblings, we've all faced bullying, right? And then when we would go home, we didn't know how to express it to each other. And I've mentioned this a few times already on the show, but we didn't know how to express it to each other. So we would take it out on ourselves with each other, right? Like, we used to call each other names. We used to pick on each other. We were massive fans of wrestling. So we would wrestle with each other. And sometimes it would get a bit too real, right? Because we had all these emotions and frustrations that when you're, my eldest sister is 7 years older than me. So when, let's say I'm 5, she's, 12. We don't know how to deal with that. How do you tell a 12-year-old to express all the anger and sadness and isolation that they're feeling from being bullied and picked on, right? You can't. So we just took it out on each other, really. So I guess if I could go back and I would try to tell my younger self that, look, your biggest strength is your mind. And, if I could give myself a way to fortify my mind from a young age and not let those things get to me, that's probably one thing I would give to my younger self to, defend herself. Now when people try to pick on me, I'm very witty. I always have a nice comeback. Sometimes it cuts deep, but it's funny. So now I'm very witty. But if I could go back and give some of that wittiness to my younger self to defend herself, I definitely would. That's one thing I would do for my younger self. Yeah.
For me, what would I do? I think for me it would be I would tell myself just to stay confident that, I am, you are different.
Right.
But you were meant to be that different for a reason. And different is beautiful.
Right.
I think that's what I would tell myself.
I think I would tell myself that as well, because I remember when I was a kid, to those that didn't already know my cultural background, I would just lie and say I'm American.
Okay, and did that work?
Yes and no.
Okay. Well, I went to the extreme that when I remember sitting on a bus in Colombia going to school, and my grandma and maybe one of my aunties waving me off, and my friend next to me in the seat would say, are you adopted? You look so different to your family. You must be adopted. That I used to use my imagination to say, no, it's just that when I was born I had something wrong with my eyes and I had an operation, and that's why I look like this. So, I think, we all use our imaginations to come back with different ideas, and maybe that's part of childhood, using your imaginations to get yourself out of situations that are perhaps uncomfortable.
For sure. Before we take a break, we have one more question from Amanatullah, who says, why is it that the older I get, the more I question where I truly belong? I've provided for my family all of my life, but did I forget to care for who I am?
Wow, that's a beautiful question.
It is a beautiful question. And that just might be the case.
Yeah.
I'm not a parent yet, but I definitely see it in a lot of parents that you get so hyper-focused on taking care of, your kids and your family, your spouse, and everybody else around you, that you fall to the wayside.
Yeah.
Right. And we did have an episode about perinatal care for mothers, right? During all phases of pregnancy, pre, during, and post. And that's one thing that we kept bringing up, is that not just mothers, parents in general tend to forget themselves, right? Because it's like you see on those airplane safety videos, right? You're supposed to put on your mask first and then your kids. But I think most people would put their kids' masks on first, then themselves, right? They do it the other way around. So that's how you fall to the wayside and you forget who you are.
And yes, that happens more often than not. And I think one of the key things, especially also like parents who are perhaps also from multicultural or different situations where they struggled in childhood to belong, then they also like carry that through with their kids,
right?
To try to protect them from not going through the same things that you went through. But everyone has a journey and a reason to be in a specific place and at a specific time to learn. And it's important to actually give yourself that time, because if you don't process it, then it's baggage that you carry that you dump onto your kids. So you have to be very careful with that. You don't want whatever you want, like even with the best of intentions, that you don't want to dump it on them. It tends to happen.
Right.
So I'll give you an example on that. I shut down for so many years my Japanese side until I came to Qatar. That's when I was able to, even in the World Cup, rejoice it as much as I could. And that my kids also, I noticed, said, no, everyone says, but your mom's name is Kayoko. Is she Japanese? Are you part Japanese? No. Until they went to Japan and they understood what the Japanese culture meant, and now they're happy with it. So it's something that I had as a baggage that I passed on to them for many, many years. So work on yourself, find that time. You deserve it.
Right.
And you're able then to give everyone else around you a better chance to be, more balanced in a way.
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely 100% agree with that. But taking it back to our questions and our listeners, we have a question. How do I reconnect with the woman I used to be before life got so heavy? And that's, we were saying off air, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a very, very, it resonates with me a lot at the moment too. But it's something that's really, really important. I think as we grow up and we start to pick responsibilities, we pick many titles, right? Sometimes we are daughters or sons, we become husbands or wives, we become parents, we become employees, we become friends, we become psychologists for other people. So it's a suite of many different titles that come with many responsibilities.
Right.
And we were talking about that earlier on, how we tend to forget ourselves. But how do you find that place? We actually held with one of the group that we do with Inspire Her, we held actually a workshop on this, and it was all about going back to finding your authentic self, the place where you were the most happiest.
Right.
And usually that's a place of where you were free, when you had no responsibilities, and remembering what was it that you used to love doing. What is it that made you who you were then?
Right.
You know, it's that place after you are no longer a child, because then you're not under your parents' sort of domain,
Right.
but you're not bound to so many responsibilities. And when you start looking into that, then you're able to remember who was your authentic self, what you liked doing, what you didn't like doing, what you enjoyed. And it's about listen all of those things down, remembering that, and making sure that you make time for those things again. Because what tends to happen after kids grow up and you have an empty
Empty nest
nest?
syndrome.
Yeah, and you just don't have anything else to talk about. You forget what it is. If I may say something, that if I can share something that really resonated with me and my daughter, actually. She came once to the room and she said, "Mommy, you're looking awful. You're looking like really tired." And she said, "I'm not really looking forward to being a grown-up." And I said, "Well, why?" She's 16 at the time. And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, what's the point going through all that school, then working, and then feeling tired the whole time, all that responsibility, all your money goes on the kids." I said, "What's the point of that? I'm not really looking forward to that." Then that's when I realized that I had to change for myself and lead by example, because all I was showing to my daughter, I thought I was showing her an independent, strong woman, but what I was showing her actually is that life is very hard and you play hard but you don't enjoy. So
Right.
having a balance, being yourself again, it actually shows the people around you that you matter, not just the kids, your husband also perhaps,
Yeah.
the people you work with. When you you give yourself those boundaries and balance, you're giving a subconscious message to everyone else, I also matter. So respect comes out of that too.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. We have another listener here who said, "How do I teach my children self-acceptance when I still struggle with it myself?"
Finding time for yourself, pausing, being able to lead by example. You are the role model that those kids look up to. Sometimes we think that they're young and they don't absorb anything, but I promise you
No.
they do.
I keep saying on this show, children are so much smarter than we give them credit for.
100%.
They watch everything, right? And whatever you do, they will mimic that behavior or that pattern that they see you doing, right? Because at that age, like when they're young, they look up to you,
Yeah.
right? No other adult matters. It's their mom and their dad. Okay, my mommy does this. I want to be like my mommy, so I do this too.
Yeah, but also they understand the situations better than we think they do.
For sure.
It's just that they feel that their voice, they don't have a voice because they're little,
Mm-hmm.
But I promise you, because I've experienced this recently, when they grow up and they have a voice and they have no fear of actually saying their opinions, they relay everything that they went through or what they thought about the situation back to you, and it's shocking. So bearing that in mind is whatever you're doing right now that they're actually witnessing, that they're experiencing with you, that they've seen, mom is actually having a break for herself, or mom is actually being able to take care of herself, or mom is actually taking care of her health, or mom is actually going to the gym. All of these messages that you're actually giving them, so that when they grow up, they're saying, it's important to take care of yourself. It's important to eat healthily. It's important to take a break. It's important to sit and do nothing if you need to, So those actions speak louder than words, basically.
Definitely, I feel that. I mean, I love sitting and doing nothing after a long, hard day just to recharge. I think it's one of my most important, times of the day where I get to just, in bed,
And it's important to do that and not feel guilty about it.
For sure. I definitely used to feel a lot of guilt about doing nothing. But I've come to realize, no, this is a necessary part of my day. I need 30 minutes to an hour where I'm just on my bed, not thinking, not moving, not doing anything, just existing.
Yeah.
Right? And then after that 30 minutes, after that hour, okay, I can get up and do whatever I need to do again. Whether it's go finish my steps on the treadmill or, hop into the shower and wash my hair. I need that 30 minutes to an hour to just recharge.
100%. And like the most important thing that we hold on our hands nowadays is the mobile phone, right? What happens with the mobile phone when we don't recharge it? It just goes dead, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time also, or anything that you use in too many apps at the same time, we break it down. It's the same thing with us. We need to be able to pause and have that moment to recharge the batteries, like you're saying, but also to reflect, because once you do recharge, you see things a lot clearer, and they're not perhaps as difficult or as overwhelming as they first appear to be when you're tired. So
definitely,
important.
That's honestly, I keep saying definitely and for sure, but it's because I truly agree with everything that you're saying. We have a listener who says, is it true that people who don't belong to a certain ethnicity belong together? So I'm guessing they're talking in the sense of like mixed race people. We don't belong to one or the other ethnicity or ethnic group. So I'm guessing they're asking, do multiracial people belong together?
Yeah. And I think that's true. I think it's more about mindset. It's all about, when you say finding your tribe, it's all about the mindset. I mean, my husband from Morocco, like, he is purely Moroccan, and I'm so mixed, and people thought it's never going to work out. I was just talking to him the other day and said, yes, we've done it. It's worked out. And it's because of the mindset. It's because of the compatibility that we have. And it's never always rosy. It goes up and down. But at the same time, it's that compatibility and that mindset that really, really helps.
Definitely.
And it's important to open up your horizons and not have barriers based on where you come from. Because you're actually opening up your opportunities to learn and experience a whole new world in ways that you never ever imagine. So 100%, I think you can belong based on mindset more than anything else.
Right. Another question is, can people not be from a multicultural background yet they don't feel like they belong? Like Kiki's Delivery Service movie, and what is your advice to them?
Kiki's Delivery Service movie?
It's a Studio Ghibli movie.
Okay, I haven't watched that one.
You should.
Okay.
You should.
And actually, Kiki's my nickname. I was thinking, there is such a film.
Anything from Studio Ghibli, you should watch.
Okay.
Watch them all. They're all really great. But to answer the first part, which is, can people not be from a multicultural background and still feel like they don't belong? For sure.
100%.
Yeah, you can be ostracized by your peers for anything, whether it's minor or major, right? They don't like your hair. You're ostracized.
Yeah. And also, like, you can come from the same background, the same culture, the same town, and you don't belong because your mindset is different. So it's going back again to mindset. You could be someone that, perhaps have traveled the world, and because they've had that different experience, then you don't feel like you belong. Even siblings, they come from the same set of parents, right? And the first child was born in a different situation versus the last child. So even though you belong to a unit, sometimes you think, oh my God, I'm so different to them, and obviously the family ties keep us always tied together, but you feel like sometimes you don't belong because, it's a different situation, different experience. So your experiences shape you in a different way.
For sure. Hence why there's that phrase, the black sheep of the family.
Oh,
right?
There's
High five, girl.
Yeah.
And me are the same.
I mean, I'm the black sheep of the family, not just because of the diversity of where I come from, but also like even faith. Faith can actually make you feel that you don't belong.
For sure. I definitely agree. We had that question about people not being from a multicultural background and, whether or not they can feel like they belong or not. We had a continuation to that, which is, from the other's perspective, how do I make a person feel accepted even though they find it challenging to accept themselves?
Oh, that's a tough one, because we can support people to find their journey, but we can't control or influence their own actions or their own decisions or the
Right.
choices that they make in their lives. So that has to come from that person themselves. So it's a journey that each individual has to take for themselves. Do you see what I mean? Like, we can't really, even though we can support and provide the actual tools, environment and everything, unless that person makes a choice to take on that journey for themselves,
Right.
it's not going to happen.
And I also think, it's such a general question because every person's needs are different. So you can ask, for example, if there's a specific person that this question is about, I think you can go to that person and be like, look, I want to be a safe space for you. How do I do that? What do you need from my end to make you feel safe?
Yeah.
Like, this is a safe space and you can be comfortable and let your guard down, right? Only then can they, start feeling a sense of, acceptance and belonging with you.
Yeah.
But it's different for every person.
100%.
Truly.
But also they need to have identified
Right. What they need.
and if they want to change, maybe they're happy. Maybe the person is not happy with them, or they think or perceive that they're not self-accepting themselves. But it's the actual person themselves that need to actually come to that conclusion
For sure.
for them to be able to start that journey.
Definitely.
A lot of the times we, when we love people or we have people around that we tend to want to rescue, we are always doing our best to see if we can change them. That happens a lot also in between couples. It's okay, I don't like that thing about them, but once after a while I'll be able to change that, and you can't. I think it's very tricky to start going into a journey where we feel or perceive that we can actually help someone change themselves, because it's just going to end up in frustration and perhaps disappointment.
Definitely. So, okay, my last question for you is, what's one message or reminder that you would like to leave with our listeners? Maybe something they can take with them, a reflection or, a small action to help grow that sense of belonging and believing in their own worth. So if you could leave them with one thing, what would it be?
I think one of the things that is key is that when you belong to yourself, you belong anywhere. And that's something that I've learned, that when you accept who you are for who you are, and you love yourself the way you are, then you can actually go anywhere. And the moment that you feel that, because remember, you can be in a situation that's perfect 1 minute, and then the next minute you've outgrown that situation. So the moment a situation is making you feel that you need to shrink, or you need to stretch yourself to a level that you're not longer comfortable with, then is the moment to pause, reflect and think, is this the right environment or situation for me? And what are my choices? So to narrow it all down is, be who you are meant to be. Love yourself. And you are worthy and enough the way you are. Don't change for anyone or anything else.
Simple and yet very beautiful and very powerful and empowering. You had that one quote by Maya Angelou that you read to me.
Yes, at the beginning it confused me, but it's so beautiful. I'll share it with you. You only are free when you realize you belong no place. You belong every place and no place at all. The price is high, but the reward is great. And it goes back to the moment you learn that you belong to yourself and you don't need to shrink or change to fit somewhere, then that gives you freedom to be who you want to be and find your own tribe and feel free. Sometimes the price is high because you do shed a lot of people on the way.
Right.
I've noticed that I've lost a lot of people around me, but the reward is great because it goes back to what you were saying earlier on. No one should disrupt your peace. When you feel peaceful and happy within yourself, that's the actual reward that is great.
Definitely. Like I said, simple but very powerful. And I like the idea of you belong nowhere but everywhere at the same time, because it's very true, right? It all goes back to what I was saying at the very beginning of the show, which is, if you don't accept yourself and if you don't find a sense of belonging within yourself and you become comfortable with that and you're okay, truly okay with it, you will never be able to fit in or belong with anybody else. If you don't love yourself, how can you expect someone else to love you or, find what's unique to you beautiful if you think what's unique to you is ugly.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Complete sense. And also even respect you, right? Because if you love yourself and you build those boundaries, then other people are able to actually provide that respect that you often, that you respect. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's very beautiful. Thank you so much for being here today with us, Kayoko. It was absolute honor to have you. I honestly wish we could extend the show for another hour. I think there's still so much to talk about, but that only means we have to bring you back, right?
I would love to come back. I think, like we were saying, there's so many different angles to the actual topic of belonging. And thank you for having me. Actually, talking to you is actually, I feel like I was meant to be here today because it made me realize that I'm not alone. It's a nice reminder, and that there's so many different people who are, I think it's called now third culture kids, but there's a lot of people who are mixed. And being mixed is not a bad thing. Being different is not a bad thing, and it's about learning to see how beautiful and special we can be, and it's an enriching experience. So thank you for actually